Commander Connor Boxton strode confidently into the alien conference room, the shadow mirroring his imperious gait on the polished metal floor. As the first human representative to make official contact with the Ferians, an advanced spacefaring race, he carried the weight of Earth's future on his broad shoulders. The room was stark and angular, all gleaming silver surfaces and harsh lighting. In the center stood a large oval table surrounded by high-backed chairs that looked more like thrones. Connor suppressed a smirk, typical of a species that prided itself on cold logic and efficiency over comfort or aesthetics. Seated at the far end of the table was a solitary figure, his Ferian counterpart for these negotiations. She rose gracefully as he approached, allowing Connor a moment to take in her exotic appearance. Like all Ferians, she was humanoid in shape, with a lithe, athletic build. But that's where the similarities ended. Her skin was a pale, almost translucent beige, stretched over elegant bones and taut muscles. A crest of flexible cartilage swept back from her high forehead, tapering into two slender tentacles that draped down her back like a ponytail. Her eyes were large and almond-shaped, a swirling silver with no visible pupils. She wore a form-fitting bodysuit of some shimmery black material that left little to the imagination. "Commander Boxton," she greeted him in flawless English, her voice a cool, emotionless soprano. "I am Viceroy Azra. Welcome to Fezeria Prime." Connor executed a perfect military bow, fist to chest. "Thank you, Viceroy Kin. It's an honor to be here representing the United Earth Federation." They took their seats on opposite sides of the table, sizing each other up. Connor couldn't help but notice how Azra's suit clung to her every curve. "Get it together, Boxton," he chided himself. "This is a diplomatic mission, not a hookup." "So," he began, lacing his fingers on the tabletop, "shall we get down to business? I believe we have much to discuss regarding the proposed alliance between our peoples." Azra tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "Indeed. But first, I have a query of a more personal nature, if you will indulge me." Connor's brows shot up in surprise. "Of course. Ask away." The Fezerian leaned forward, her silver eyes boring into his. "Tell me, Commander, how do humans mate?" Connor nearly choked on his own spit. "I beg your pardon?" "Mating, copulation, procreation," Azra clarified bluntly. "My people reproduce through a purely technical process, a simple combining of genetic material in a laboratory. There is no physical contact, no emotional connection. It is merely a means to an end, the continuation of our species." She paused, studying his reaction. "But I have heard rumors that humans engage in mating for pleasure, that you have elaborate rituals and practices surrounding the act. I wish to understand this strange concept." Connor felt his face flush hot. Of all the topics he'd expected to discuss with an alien dignitary, the birds and the bees was definitely not on the list. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "Well, you heard correctly. For humans, sex isn't just about making babies. It's also a way to express affection, to bond with a partner on a deeper level. There's an emotional and mental component to it, not just physical." Azra listened intently, her head cocked to one side. "Fascinating. And these emotions, they heighten the pleasure of the act?" "Absolutely, Bissam." Connor confirmed, warming to the subject despite himself. "When you're with someone you care about, someone you're attracted to, it's like an electric current running through your whole body. Every touch is amplified, every sensation intensified. It's the ultimate intimacy." The Viceroy looked intrigued, but also slightly skeptical. "I must admit, Commander, I find this difficult to comprehend. For Fezerians, intimacy is a foreign concept. We pride ourselves on being governed by logic and reason, not base urges or sentimental nonsense." Connor shook his head, a wry smile playing on his lips. "With all due respect, Viceroy, I think you're missing out. Emotions aren't a weakness. They're what make us human. They're the spice of life, the fire in our blood. Without them, we'd just be, well, machines. Cold and efficient, but empty inside." Azra considered this, her silver eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "An intriguing perspective, but I still fail to grasp how physical pleasure could be enhanced by mere feelings." Rising from his chair, Connor circled the table until he stood beside her, his tall frame towering over her seated form. Azra tensed but did not recoil, watching him warily. "May I?" he asked softly, extending a hand. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded once. Gently, Connor brushed his fingertips along the curve of her jawline, marveling at the cool smoothness of her skin. Azra inhaled sharply, her eyes widening. "This is called a caress," he murmured, trailing his touch down the side of her neck. "It's a way of showing affection, of awakening desire in your partner." The Viceroy sat very still, her breathing shallow. I feel strange, a sort of tingling sensation beneath my skin." Connor smiled, his hand coming to rest on her shoulder. "That's arousal. It's your body's way of telling you it likes what's happening, that it wants more." Abruptly, Azra stood, dislodging his hand. She took a step back, visibly flustered. "Enough! I cannot!" She shook her head as if to clear it. "This discussion is over, Commander. We will reconvene tomorrow to continue our negotiations. Good night." With that, she spun on her heel and strode briskly from the room, leaving a bemused Connor in her wake. "Well," he muttered to himself, staring after her, "that was interesting." Little did he know it was only the beginning. The icy Viceroy's curiosity had been piqued, a spark ignited, and Connor would soon find himself playing the role of teacher to a very eager student. As he made his way back to his quarters, he couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of the situation. Here he was, light years from home, tasked with forging an alliance that could change the course of human history. And yet, his mind kept drifting back to Azra, the feel of her cool skin beneath his fingertips, the way her eyes had darkened with a hunger she clearly didn't understand. "Looks like I'm not just a diplomat anymore," he mused wryly. "I'm a goddamn interspecies sex ed instructor. Humanity, fuck yeah." Shaking his head in amused disbelief, Connor keyed open the door to his room and stepped inside, already looking forward to whatever surprises tomorrow might bring. One thing was for sure. This was shaping up to be the most memorable mission of his career, and he had a feeling it was only going to get more interesting from here. The next morning, Connor was jolted awake by the chime of his door. Groggily, he rolled out of bed and stumbled over to answer it, running a hand through his sleep-tousled hair. To his surprise, Viceroy Azra stood in the hallway, looking as poised and put together as ever in a fresh bodysuit of shimmering silver. Her eyes widened slightly as she took in his disheveled appearance in lack of a shirt. "Commander Boxton," she greeted coolly, "I apologize for the early intrusion. May I come in? I wish to continue our discussion from last night." Connor blinked, still trying to shake off the cobwebs of sleep. Sure. Just give me a minute to make myself decent." He stepped back to allow her entry, then hastily grabbed a shirt from the floor and pulled it on. Azra's nose wrinkled almost imperceptibly at the mess, but she refrained from commenting. "So," Connor began, perching on the edge of his rumpled bed. "What's on your mind, Viceroy?" Azra clasped her hands behind her back, her posture ramrod straight. "I have been considering your words from our previous conversation about the role of emotions and pleasure in human mating rituals. I find myself intrigued by the concept, but still struggling to fully comprehend it." Connor nodded slowly. "Okay, what exactly do you want to know?" The Viceroy hesitated, a rare flicker of uncertainty crossing her angular features. "I wish to understand the mechanics of it, the physical acts involved, and how they stimulate these pleasurable sensations you spoke of." Connor's eyebrows shot up. "You want me to give you a play-by-play of human sex?" "If you would be so kind," Azra replied, unperturbed by his bluntness. "Consider it a cultural exchange, a way for our species to better understand one another." Rubbing the back of his neck, Connor blew out a breath. "All right, I'll do my best, but fair warning, this might get a little awkward." And so, with a mixture of clinical detachment and boyish embarrassment, Connor began to explain the ins and outs of human sexuality to the attentive Ferian. He covered the basics of anatomy, the erogenous zones, the mechanics of arousal and orgasm. Azra listened raptly, occasionally interjecting with a probing question or a request for clarification. "So, these erogenous zones you mentioned," she said at one point, her brow furrowed in concentration, "they're areas of heightened sensitivity that, when stimulated, enhance pleasure?" "Exactly," Connor confirmed. "The neck, the ears, the nipples, the inner thighs. Everyone's a little different, but those are some of the most common hotspots." Azra nodded thoughtfully. "And this act of kissing, The pressing of lips together, that is also considered pleasurable? Connor couldn't help but smile at her clinical phrasing. Oh yeah, kissing is like, it's the ultimate expression of desire, of passion. When you kiss someone you're attracted to, it's electric. It's like a circuit completing, a current flowing between you. The Viceroy looked intrigued, but also slightly skeptical. I must admit, Commander, I still find it difficult to imagine deriving enjoyment from such activities. They seem so primitive, undignified. Connor shrugged, unfazed. Maybe so, but sometimes it's good to let go of dignity and just feel, to surrender to your baser instincts and desires. It's freeing in a way. Azra was silent for a long moment, her silver eyes distant. Then abruptly she stood. Thank you for the lesson, Commander. It has been most enlightening, but I fear I will never truly grasp these concepts without practical application. Connor's mouth went dry. What are you saying? She fixed him with an intense, unblinking stare. I am saying that I wish for you to demonstrate these techniques. On me. He gaped at her, certain he must have misheard. You want me to touch you? Intimately? For purely educational purposes, of course, Azra clarified, a faint, soft flush staining her high cheekbones. Consider it an experiment, a way for me to empirically test your claims about the pleasures of physical contact. Connor's mind reeled. This was so far beyond the scope of his mission parameters, it was laughable. And yet, there was a part of him, a primal, reckless part, that was undeniably intrigued by the prospect. All right, he found himself saying, his voice rough. But we take it slow, and if at any point you feel uncomfortable or want to stop, you say the word and we do. Immediately. No questions asked. Azra inclined her head in agreement. Understood, Commander. I place myself in your capable hands. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Connor rose and crossed to where she stood, his heart hammering against his ribs. Slowly, giving her time to change her mind, he raised a hand to cup her cheek, marveling anew at the coolness of her skin. Lesson 1, he murmured, his thumb brushing the corner of her mouth. Kissing. And then, before he could second-guess himself, he lowered his head and pressed his lips to hers in a soft, chaste kiss. Azra stiffened at the contact, her body going rigid with surprise. But she didn't pull away. After a moment, Connor felt her relax incrementally, her lips parting slightly beneath his. Emboldened, he deepened the kiss, his tongue darting out to trace the seam of her mouth. Azra made a small, startled sound in the back of her throat, but then tentatively, she began to respond, her own tongue meeting his in a clumsy dance. Connor groaned low in his chest, his free hand coming up to tangle in her silky hair. He knew he should stop, that he was treading on dangerous ground here. But God, she tasted amazing, like cool mint and something uniquely her, something alien and intoxicating. It was Azra who broke the kiss, pulling back to stare at him with wide, wondering eyes. Her chest heaved with rapid breaths, her lips swollen and glistening. That was unexpected, she managed, her normally composed voice slightly breathless. I am not certain what I felt, but it was not unpleasant. Connor grinned, a wicked edge to it. Lesson 2, he purred, his fingers drifting down to brush the sensitive skin of her neck. Erogenous zones. And as he lowered his mouth to the hollow of her throat, Azra's eyes fluttered closed in surrender, a soft moan escaping her lips. In that moment, Connor knew he was lost. Protocol be damned. He was going to show this icy alien vixen the true meaning of pleasure, the raw, unfiltered passion of human desire. Humanity. Fuck yeah, indeed. In the days that followed, Connor and Azra's lessons became a regular occurrence. Under the guise of cultural exchange and diplomatic relations, they met in secret, exploring each other's bodies and the strange, exhilarating new sensations they evoked. For Azra, it was a revelation. With each touch, each kiss, each shuddering climax, she felt something awakening inside her. A hunger, a yearning she'd never known existed. Connor was patient, attentive, guiding her with a sure and steady hand as she navigated the unfamiliar terrain of desire. I never knew, she gasped one night, her head thrown back in ecstasy as Connor's clever fingers worked their magic between her thighs. I never knew it could be like this, that I could feel so much. Connor grinned against her neck, his teeth grazing her pulse point. That's the beauty of it, Azra. Pleasure, passion, they make us feel alive, connected, human. And in those stolen moments, tangled together in the sheets, they were just that. Not a human commander and an alien viceroy, but simply two beings lost in the throes of passion, the fire of desire. But outside the bedroom, reality intruded. The negotiations were not going well. The Ferian High Council was resistant to the proposed alliance, viewing humans as primitive, emotionally volatile creatures, unworthy of their advanced technology and resources. Connor argued passionately on behalf of his species, touting humanity's resilience, adaptability, and indomitable spirit. But his words fell on deaf ears, the council members' faces impassive and unmoved. It was Azra who finally tipped the scales. In a moment of uncharacteristic emotion, she stood before her peers and spoke from the heart, her voice ringing with conviction. "Esteemed counselors," she began, her silver eyes blazing. "I have spent the past weeks in close contact with a human representative, Commander Boxton, and in that time, I have come to see the error of our ways." A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber, but Azra pressed on, undaunted. "We Ferians pride ourselves on our logic, our reason. We view emotions as a weakness, a flaw to be suppressed and overcome. But the humans, they embrace their feelings, their passions. They draw strength from them, use them as a driving force for growth, for change, for connection." She paused, her gaze finding Connor's across the room. "Commander Boxton has shown me the power of that connection. He has taught me that there is more to life than cold calculations and clinical detachment. That sometimes the most logical course of action is to follow one's heart." Connor felt a swell of pride and affection in his chest, a lump forming in his throat. In that moment, he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that what he felt for Azra was more than just physical attraction, more than a fleeting infatuation. It was something deeper, something real and true and lasting. In the end, the council was swayed by Azra's impassioned speech. The alliance was approved, a historic moment for both species. And as the chamber erupted in applause, Connor and Azra's eyes met, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. They had won more than just a political victory. They had found each other, two souls from different worlds, united by a bond that transcended the boundaries of space and species. In the aftermath, as the dust settled and the reality of their new partnership set in, Connor and Azra stood together on the observation deck of the Ferian flagship, gazing out at the stars. "What happens now?" Azra asked softly, her hand finding his in the darkness. "Where do we go from here?" Connor turned to face her, his free hand coming up to cup her cheek. "Wherever we want," he murmured, his thumb tracing the delicate line of her jaw. "The universe is a big place, Azra, full of wonders and possibilities, and I want to explore them all with you by my side." She smiled then, a rare, radiant thing that took his breath away. "I would like that very much, Connor Boxton, to boldly go where no Ferian has gone before, into the uncharted territory of the heart." He laughed, a deep, joyous sound, and then he was kissing her, pouring all the love and passion and promise he felt into the press of his lips against hers. And there in the vast expanse of space, a human and an alien found a connection that defied the odds, a love that burned brighter than any star. It was a testament to the power of the human spirit, the indomitable will and boundless capacity for emotion that set humanity apart. Humanity, fuck yeah, indeed.